Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you are all well. You amazing, amazing people. We made it, by the way. We made it. It's now Friday. That's it. The end of the week. And you're looking absolutely amazing, may I add? Isn't this like the first week of 2024? And what a week it's been. And, you know, we've had some good news. We've seen movement in some cases. We've seen 1122 King Road buried. Yeah, that's correct. Buried. And sadly, we're finishing the week off with a school shooting, another school shooting. Aunt B, one of the moderators on the channel, she messaged me yesterday, and yes, she told me what had been going on. This place is not far from her, and yes, it was something. What can I say? You'll see in a second. Let's go through it, shall we? I know some of you will have likely heard of what's going on and who the people were involved or the person was involved and the implications of that person. But look, 1 killed, 5 injured by Iowa school shooter on the first day after winter break. Some people just can't wait. 17-year-old student at Perry High School in Iowa fatally shot a 6th grader and wounded 4 other students and a school administrator Thursday before apparently taking his own life. Police responded to an active shooter around 7:37 a.m. at the high school in Perry, a city of around 7,800, around 30 miles northwest of Des Moines, is that? Des Moines? I'm going to have annihilated that. Let me know down below the correct way of saying it. Police said the shooter was armed with a pump-action shotgun, a small-caliber handgun, police said. The identity of the student who was killed has not been released. Everyone else who was injured is expected to survive, officials said, which is good. Very rare that in amongst a tragic event you can say that there's good news. I suppose this could have been horrendously worse. It's bad, you know. At the end of the day, it's a child lost their lives. It's horrendous. But this shooting situation where we're seeing this becoming, it's a too common occurrence. And the downside is there are people out there who turns around and says, look, this can be eradicated just by saying, look, we don't have guns. Remove guns from the equation. Sadly, that's just not going to fix things here, and we're going to learn more about that in a second. Governor Kim Reynolds called the shooting a senseless tragedy. Senseless tragedy, as there ever a tragedy that's got sense to it. That has shaken Perry and the entire state, and she said her prayers were with the community. Authorities have not released a motive, and an investigation was ongoing. Motive is where this gets interesting, which we're going to touch on in a second. And apparently there is, and again, I'm only saying, I'm not saying that this is correct. I'm not saying anything of the sort, but this is what's being said. And again, we'll get there in a second. Responding officers found victims who had been shot and the shooter dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Mitch Mortford, the assistant director at the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigations, said at a news conference. Police also found an improvised explosive device, which the state fire marshal and the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives rendered safe. The shooter was identified as Dylan Butler. The evidence indicates he acted alone, Morford said. I'm going to go with Morford. Butler also made a number of social media posts in and around the time of the shooting, he said. The shooting happened before school had started and not many students were on campus, but a breakfast program was taking place. So if we then go over to here, which is school shooter self-identified as he, they, and gender fluid. Perhaps not coincidentally, Butler would be the latest in a string of US mass shooters who are genderqueer, like the Colorado Springs shooter Anderson Lee Aldrich. Noted a November 22, 2022 report citing court records of how Aldrich self-identified. Anderson Aldrich is non-binary. They use they/them pronouns for the purposes of all formal filings. Will be addressed as MX, mix. Similarly, Butler would also identify with the pronouns he, they, and gender fluid. Butler, who had yet to have made the transition as a transgender man-woman, struggled with seeking to make the change and how they would be perceived. It's gone on to say that there's been an attempt to scrub a lot of his social media from the internet. They're saying, obviously, this is trans are trying heavily, or some people are trying to push heavily the connection between these shootings and transgender. I think the reality of it is that regardless of anything, you can be anything and be a shooter. You can have mental health issues, you can have depression, anxiety, whatever, and pick up a gun and go out. I think the reality is that how can I say it's a difficult one to navigate this sort of situation. The reality is that if somebody picks up a weapon and they do something of this gravity, then there are underlying issues way beyond what's being pushed in the forefront. And again, I'm trying to remain as PC as physically possible, and that's, again, a hard one to navigate. But like I say, I don't think if you're a certain gender or a certain label, you're automatically going to go out and cause an atrocity like that. And I think that's a dangerous route to take. But again, they're trying to say that there has been attempts made to scrub a lot of his posts on social media, whether that's to try and detach this crime from the transgender movement. That's highly likely. And again, being hard to navigate, I think that this is a dangerous world that we live in. It's a dangerous world we live in, and it can be said that some people can use something like this to push hatred towards a certain type of person, a certain movement of people, and that's when the world becomes a very dangerous place. Let's not forget that there's been plenty of mass shooters who are not transgender, for instance. I think that would be fair to say. So on here it's saying, again, this was posts that were made, obviously, Facebook lit up like Blackpool illuminations. The individual responsible for the mass shooting at Perry High School has been identified as Dylan Butler. It's come to light that Butler was not involved in this horrific act of violence, but was not only involved, he was active as an online activist. There we have. He had TikTok. He posted on very frequently. And just before the incident, he posted a picture in the school bathroom saying, "Now we wait." And it's got some stuff here. Do you know what I mean? It's the normal stuff that we see. And again, a lot of the posts that we're now seeing is the connection between Dylan Butler and basically the transgender movement. And you can see where this is going. You can see where it's heading. And I don't want to be part of that. At the end of the day, this is a tragic event. A child lost their life, some other people were injured, and this is another waste, a complete and utter fucking waste. And just goes to show how messed up this world is becoming. It's just sad. It's sad more than anything. And things need to improve. You know, as far as this gun situation in America, removing guns isn't going to remove the problem. It's about dealing with the issues at hand, and that is that there are people out there who are suffering, that are struggling, and need support. They need help. More funding needs to be put in to help people who need help from a mental health perspective. That's my opinion. And I know some people are not going to agree with that opinion, but I think far too much money is spent over here when it should be spent over here. And then you end up with people who are not being looked after, they're not being dealt with, they're not being cared for in the way that they should, and they're left to their own devices, and before too long, that goes too far, and people get hurt. And then they try to make it look like something else was the cause. You know, it's like in the UK where we see gun violence and knife violence in the likes of London, exponentially rise over the last few years, especially around the pandemic. And you think this is about the things that people can do, the things that children can do, young adults can do, slowly being chipped away at. Parents, their money slowly being chipped away at. That means that they can't now offer their children anything because there's nothing left to do it. So these children are watching children from more sort of wealthy families with stuff that they want, and they become angry. They become so angry that they then want these things, but there's no way for them to get them legitimately. So they turn to gangs, they turn to drugs in order to do it. But it's the governments and the system that is slowly chipping away at people's ability to provide things that should be freely available. And this is what you end up with. You end up with a society that's pissed off, angry, and mental health issues creep in. And again, as I've mentioned, people get hurt. Let me know down below. A senseless tragedy has reported, and my heart goes out to all those affected. Let's hope that this gets better in the future. How can it? Let me know. I'll catch you all in the next one.